Dr. Jean Augustine, who is here in our midst and has always been a great support to the process. When you say a senior, a real senior, when you are 80 and above and you're still doing what you're doing, it sounds unbelievable to imagine that she's 80 years old. You look great at 80. I say if that's what 80 looks like, I'm coming. I'm coming. And we're also grateful to have, the chairman of the Elders Council, Dr. Audley James, a legend and one who's made history in this nation, and father of the land. We are very grateful. He's been a support for this process from the onset, and has done quite a lot, traveled a lot on behalf of the African Union. Was the special keynote speaker at the launch of the Diaspora Summit in 2012. He gave the powerful speech that got parliamentarians and heads of states and everybody standing up on their feet at the Pan-African Parliament in South Africa in 2012. So we are very privileged to have you here, sir, for the continued work that you've been doing in the community. We really appreciate that. And once again, to each and every one of you that are here, we really welcome you. We want to thank you. I'll be calling some of you to just give you remarks. Dr. James couldn't make it earlier. I was supposed to be there at the flag raising. And also we have Rosemary Sadler, who also is a member of the board of the African Union 6th region, and he will be bringing a remark as well. And so we have great individuals here. We really thank Nee Coney, all the way from Edmonton, to be here to celebrate this great occasion as well, and who is doing an amazing job in the Alberta Western region of Canada. And we'll be taking this message more as he goes back based on the messages that we relate here today. And so Kim Morris Foundation, amazing woman, doing a great job as well. We have our very own Emmanuel, who is a part of the board as well, and with great initiatives and plan to bring our community together. Lona Edwards also have a foundation that is helping a lot within the Caribbean and Africa. They send a lot of stuff to support people of African descent and the continent and the Caribbean, and so we really appreciate that. So many of you that are here, we have our very own stylist, and who always want to make sure that we look good, and who is in the house as well. And so we really appreciate each and every one of you for being here. Esther Hunter, professor, for all the way from Pennsylvania to come down for this occasion. That you're a strong lady. Thanks for being here. At this point, I'm going to call Rosemary Sadler to come and give us a welcome remarks, and then Dr. James will be doing that. And then we'll have Felicia to come and give us just a sound to refresh us, and I'll hand over to our guests that are here to talk to us. Once again, we want to recognize Zoom Media, Zoom TV, who are actually putting this live at this point as we speak. And we also have the Black Inspire group as well, who will be, recording and putting it live as well as we speak. So, for now, most people might not be here, but there's a lot of people that will be joining online. So we did what we can to make sure that more people across Canada and all over the place will be engaged in the forum. And we also ask them to send forth questions or anything that they have that we can also position our guest here to be able to answer those questions. We have Elizabeth, who is also helping us to cover these through pictures and videos as well. So we're going to set the ball rolling, and please help me welcome Ms. Rosemary Sadler.
I'm so excited to be here, to be included in this wonderful event. And it reminds me so much of what would normally have been happening when I was a little girl on this long weekend period. It would have meant that we would have been going to our cottage. It would have meant that there would have been a lot of family time. It would have meant that we would have been away from the city of Toronto, and we would have been celebrating Victoria Day. So here I am, some years later, and I'm celebrating the African Union. But to go back to those holiday weekends, I remember one time being with my mother, who picked me up from the place I was being cared for, and we were stopped by a car full of African American tourists, and they wanted to know where the Black community was, and they couldn't find it because this was a long time ago when there were dinosaurs. So my mother brought them to our house, and there we were with a family of African American tourists who had driven all the way up from Louisiana, hosting people who wanted to see the end of the Underground Railroad. They stayed with us for a number of weeks, and they became lifelong friends and whatnot. And I'm reminded of them because in our midst, we have a very brave young woman who drove all the way up here on her own, inspired by what the African Union and the celebration of the African Union might mean. So thank you so much for driving all the way up here from Pennsylvania. The issue, though, of representation, which I was getting at very gently, the fact that the African American tourists were looking for the Black community a long time ago, the fact that it was so impossible for that representation to be readily apparent to them, I think is, sorry, in stark contrast to where we are right now. In stark contrast to the reality that not only are we celebrating the African Union and the reality that there is a powerhouse developing here, but we are also celebrating on that same Queen Victoria long weekend the entry of a more recent addition of an African person into the British Royal House. I think that why this ties into what we're doing now, it's just another way of looking at the reality that things are changing, that representation in those very different levels, representation in terms of where is the Black community, representation in terms of where is the African Union, representation in terms of why you would come all the way to Canada to celebrate the African Union. These are elements that I think for 2018, for this international decade for people of African origin, are very compelling. And it's also a reason that I'm very hopeful that in the coming days, to further mark the African Union and the reality of what helps to bind and connect many people who are here in this room historically, and that would be the celebration of our freedom from enslavement. I have been working on seeing the celebration of our emancipation. August 1st is Emancipation Day. I have seen it grow since 1997 from a commemoration that has taken place with the City of Toronto, Metro Toronto, ultimately the province of Ontario. I've been able to see it go to second reading twice with the federal government. And most recently, I've been able to successfully have a petition, a parliamentary petition submitted. I'm hopeful that that additional element of representation will come to pass in the next few days in support of what the African Union does and in support of our representation. So thank you so much to Macaulay and everyone else on the team for working on what we can do in our own realms, at our own levels, on representation of our African Union. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for several years for your tireless efforts in continue to promote African history and heritage in here through in the past Ontario Black History Society, and now the fight through the emancipation of our people, and that recognition is highly needed and required as well. And so we're looking forward for more greater things coming our way. It's our season. Like I said, we knew that it was going to happen anyway. Everything has a season, everything has a time, and the cycle is now that Africa is in the lead of what needs to happen all over the world. I want to call Dr. Duvalier James to bring his greetings and remark, and we'll call as well Emmanuel Nellis, and then we will have our sister to give us a song, and we'll proceed. Dr. James.
Thank you so very much, Reverend Macaulay Callu, and all protocol observed. Let me say what a pleasure and a delight it is for me to be here with you this afternoon. Ever since I've had the privilege of finding where my roots belong, I have been very emotional. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to visit Ghana, West Africa, in 2012, to address the parliament in South Africa, and even to be a part of the AU 6th region and the chairman of the Elders Council, even to be here with you this evening. There are a lot of emotions inside of me. I'm discovering how significant and important it is to know where you come from, know where you belong, to whom you belong, and all the things that have made it possible for you to be alive today. I'm celebrating the fact that as a senior person, I have great aspirations and great hopes and dreams, that all that we dream for and aspire and hope for that will take place in the continent of Africa will be realized in my lifetime. I have been a part of the AU 6th region from its inception. I've been here not only physically, but my heart is here. And I'm believing, like Dr. Sadler said, that the tomorrows for our people are going to be great. There are many reasons why I believe that we are still one of the most God-fearing people on the planet. We believe in the Creator. We believe that the Creator has had a purpose and a plan for us. And I know that with your commitment and your zeal and everything that you will do to make the AU 6 region a reality in the city and in this part of the continent, I believe that our tomorrow is going to be great. I believe that God is going to allow all of our dreams and aspirations to be manifested in our time, not very long from now. And I believe that there will be great rejoicing, not only on the continent, but around the world. I thank you for this opportunity, and be assured and be confident that my prayers are always going to be with you and with our people. I can let you know that my daily prayer, as I pray globally, my primary focus is always not only on my homeland, Jamaica, but also on the continent of Africa. And I believe in God for great things.
Thank you very much, Dr. James. And once again, like I said, it's amazing when you have elders who are there to support you, who have paved the way before we got here, and has gone through a lot of process, and seen the ups and downs of life, especially here in Canada, to say, son, watch it here, watch it there, be careful for this, be careful for that, be strong, be encouraged. He's one of the people from time to time I also go to. I was with him not too long ago before we even went to Ghana, came back from Ghana, and met with him and is always there giving that encouragement as the support that is required. And so who will believe that Dr. James is past 80 years old? It's amazing how wow, it's really amazing. So we're very...
Age is a number.
It's a number, yes, you're right. It's a number. So it's really, even our brother Connie is reaching that number, almost 80 as well. It's amazing to see how young and fresh they are, just like Mama said, it's just a number. And so we're very grateful for what is going on here. We are very humbled as well for your presence, the support and encouragement that you bring on the table. So we really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you. I want to call Emmanuel quickly to please come, and then Felicia will give us a...
Thanks, Macaulay, and it's always a challenge to go after elders, yeah. And but it's also for me, it's a reassurance that in the presence of our elders, I think, as I was saying earlier on in the day, I think we have the opportunity to really reflect on the legacy and where we came from and what's ahead of us. I want to recognize that we are in indigenous land, and want to pay tribute, to the indigenous, various indigenous folks that have, made this place really hospitable and welcome for all of us. The latest group being the Mississauga of Port Credit. I have the privilege of joining the board of directors here recently, and a lot of my work here in the city, in the Black community, straddles two things. One is, looking at building bridges among the various diversities of the Black family, so to speak. The continental Africans, the folks from the Caribbean, and other Black communities that we have in this great country of ours. And that is important because I believe at the end of the day, if we have a united leadership that really works together, we are all better off. The other is, looking at, reminding my folks in the community, the leaders, about the importance of paying attention to the forest. And by that I mean, like, we're so busy on a number of issues, from mental health, education, poverty, youth employment, and an aging population. All of us are busy doing things on the ground, focusing on the trees. But we should also not we should not lose our capacity to not pay attention to the forest, because a lot of things that are happening at the policy level, at the city level, at the province, at the federal level, impinge on how our communities fare. Yeah? And when I talk to, especially to my folks in the continent here in the city, about pay attention to the data. The significant number of our communities here in the city are actually living in a state of poverty, 40 to 50% more. And follow the data and look where the data is trending in terms of our communities. So yes, we're busy doing projects and activities on the ground, but let's sit with policymakers. Let's sit with the folks that are actually passing decisions that affect all of us. And at the end of the day, in the streets of Toronto, Montreal, or Vancouver, it doesn't matter, we're all Black. Well, originally I'm from Eritrea. I do a lot of community peace building work among Eritreans and Ethiopians, among Eritreans themselves, because of my experience of growing up in a war situation. When I sit with ministers that are affecting decisions that affect our communities, they really don't care where you come from. At the end of the day, the Black community, when you look at the data, we're compared to other communities, are doing well. Why am I mentioning this? I'm mentioning this because our engagement with the continent, the diaspora engagement with the continent, is a two-way street for me. I think we need to pay attention to the vibrancy of our communities here so that we can engage better with the continent. Yeah? And I come across, and I work a lot with young leaders from various African communities, I come across a lot of passion and interest to engage with the continent. There are a lot of young folks that are really want to engage with the content. So to create those pathways, we need also to pay attention. A lot of these guys are coming from colleges and universities with degrees and diploma and not finding gainful employment. So I'm mentioning all this difficult data only to remind ourselves that, you know, the more we create vibrancy here in the diaspora, the better situated we are in terms of meaningfully engaging the continent. I have the privilege and humility of sitting on the Jane Augustine Chair Advisory Committee on Diaspora Education and Community. Just had 2 days ago our committee meeting where we're talking about an important project, the Black Experience Project. There's a lot of data about the Black community coming out of that project. That project is now sitting with the chair. And one of the things that we're discussing, how do we actually bring this out in the community so that we can engage more folks, yeah? And I think part of this, it takes me to look at how do we actually, when we talk about the 6th region, how do we actually bring the 6th region in the streets, so to speak, of our communities? That's what I'm excited about in terms of my volunteer role at the board, and I look forward to continuing to support the work.
And once again, you know, just for those who have not been paying attention to the project of the chair, which is led by Honorable Jane Augustine, you know, there's so many things that are not done that we don't really pay attention to make sure that our history and our culture is not put at the back burner. In the universities, we don't have things that really talk about who we are and recognition. And so by setting up the chair project, where you have the studies of African history, African diaspora issues, and our culture and all that, it's very, very important that we pay attention to these things. You know, she's been doing amazing to raise $3 million, and I think almost about $2 million has been raised for that. I'm still looking forward to about $1 million now, $1 million remaining. She took about $1 million of her own personal money to put into that. She could have taken that and done so many things, but she put that just for our community, to leave a legacy that will live beyond, you know, her years. And we need to pay attention to that and recognize this great work that you know, that she's doing. That universities is as a chair that is taken care of like a trust, and will pay for the process by itself to make sure that the universities are talking about who we are, talking about our culture, talking about our history, and so many things. And so once again, we appreciate Dr. Jane Augustine on this wonderful project that she's doing in the city, and Emmanuel for being part of that committee. And so I guess there's so much that so many of you here will still be talking as we move forward. But I want to call Felicia to give her just a freshener of a song, and you know, and we will have those conversations and see where we move from here. Please come, put your hands together for Felicia. We need to plug this.
Pardon?
We need to plug that.
It works. Distinguished guests, it's a pleasure to be able to sing again. We are not quite sure if the sound is going to be what it needs to be, but we will certainly let's see. Let me know if you can hear, because I've got this teeny tiny little speaker. This song is about being an angel to the people around us, touching one another, and being a part of a community of angels. What does an angel do to make him shine so bright? What does an angel say to make everything alright? How can an angel be so very close to me? Each and every day, each and every night, my angel, everywhere I go, they're taking care of me and loving me. spite of all I do, they're always guiding me, guiding me. No, 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 no one will ever know how many times angels have led the way when we were blind. Kindness that went unseen, granting no wish or dream. Somehow they made a way when they heard us pray. My angel, everywhere I go, they're taking care of me and loving me, really, really loving me. In spite of all I do, they're always guiding me, guiding me, giving me strength when I'm not strong. They sing to me their song, and they let me know this is where I belong. Oh, heaven can make anybody shine. Yes, they can. And heaven is waiting to remind someone that they loved, and with wings or smiles we will rise and rise and rise above heaven. Oh, we're gonna rise, rise, rise. We're gonna rise. Together we can do it. We can be angels to each other. We can be angels to each other. We can be angels to each other. We can bring hope during sorrow. We can bring smiles, sharing laughter. We can be happy ever after. We can be, oh, we can be angels. And will you be my angel? Oh, will you be, oh, will you be my angel? Will you be my angel? Will you be my angel? I'm gonna be your angel. Will you be, 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 will you be my angel? Will you be my angel? We can be angels to each other, my sister, my brother. Be my angel.
Okay, we'll be your angel.
This is a very special story. I think the song is quite fitting to setting to be each other's angel as we support one another in being able to move forward. Once again, I just want to say that this forum is about engagement, it's about sharing, it's about interacting with one another. We've come a long way, as you know. Those of us who has been in the city, we call it being in the trenches and pulling in and doing what needs to be done. It's about time, that we come together. For the first time, even in Canada, in the budget, the Black Canadians were mentioned in the budget. And specifically mentioned how much that we dedicated to our community after several years in this country. It means that we are getting somewhere. And also for the Prime Minister of Canada to acknowledge, which has not been done in so many parts of the world, not even in Africa, to recognize decade of people of African descent. And we have a government that have decided to recognize that and talk about the fact that we matter. We are people, and there is a need for us to be given more opportunity to get engaged in the community. And so, once again, let's use our voices. In Ontario, just to remind you, please, that there's election going on, and we want to encourage you to please go and vote. You can't stay by the side and complain and just imagine that things will change. This is the time to use your vote to make the change. Encourage people in your homes, in your houses, in your neighborhood, in your community, in your organization, please go and vote. And we have also people within our community that are running for office. It doesn't matter which party. This is not about a political party this time. Support your own. It's important. We have a lot of them. Please go and vote. Fight the values that they represent. If they speak to your soul and to your mind and to the values that you stand for, please encourage people to go and vote. For those who are of faith, yes, it's good to pray. It's good to speak all the good things that need to be, but faith without works is dead. And so you're going to go out there and do what needs to be done, not just what you say or what you think, but you need to put action to whatever that you're saying as well. And I think that's where we are today, that we want to put more action to the things that we've been talking behind the closed doors, but it's time to come out in the open and begin to get things done. The whole plan which the delegation will be talking about is now how do we as a collective begin to work together. Over the years, we have submitted some names of members. Some of you are here, but over 50-something organizations that are fully registered with us in the past. Right now, we have more names, basically about 50 more names that are added to that. A number of organizations that have registered with the African Union 6th region. And we're looking now, how do we come together as a group? We had a forum, a faith group about a week ago. We had Selena as one of the keynote speakers there, and explaining to us the opportunities that are there for us as a community, and a lot of funds that are also there that we are not even tapping into. But we cannot get it. She made it very clear, you cannot get it just as an individual organization, but you can get it as a collective. And that's an encouragement to be able to do that. And so she said, if you come as a collective and you put in your request and you don't get it, then ask of me. I will see to it to make sure that you get the support that you need. But you have to do the first thing first. And that's why we want to talk about what needs to be done to move us to the next level. There's a lot of things that are going on that we are now pulling together to take care of the key things, the most important things. And I think it's good to begin to talk about this, bring them to the forefront. What are those things that are important to us that we need to, pay attention to and bring the changes? So at this point, I want to welcome, Nana, who will be leading this process. You can see it's just going to be an interaction. And I'll pass on the microphone to you to please help welcome the delegation, Nana Osei, and Dr. Ken, who will be directing us on this forum today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Macaulay. Good evening, everyone. All protocols observed. Again, I would like to express what an honor it is for me personally and my colleague, Dr. Khan, to be here on the occasion of Africa Day 2018 to try to bring a lot of the work that we have done over the last 18 months to 2 years with AU6 and the larger community here in Canada, hopefully to its logical conclusion The purpose of our gathering today is really to officially inaugurate the partnership between the African Union Commission and the African Diaspora Community here through AU6. Obviously, I'm not launching AU6. AU6 has existed for a long time. What we are going to hopefully officially solidify is the relationship that we will enter into going forward. That will hopefully allow us to bring the kind of support and partnership that will benefit both the community here as well as the continent of Africa. I think I'll probably keep it fairly brief and business-like, if I may. The last time I came, I did have speeches to make, and then nothing happened visibly for 18 months, and a lot of the feedback was like, you came and you talked a lot, what happened? Nothing really happened. So I think today let's focus on what's going to happen and what our ideas are in terms of how we can work to support one another, from our vantage point in the AU Commission and from the community here in AU6. So I'm thinking the way that we will go through the evening is I will bring you briefly up to speed on what has happened since the last time we were here, and to this point where we're about to inaugurate this partnership. I will run you through some of the thinking that we've done as to what exactly we want to do with this partnership going forward, for the next 18 months to maybe 2 years. And there is maybe where the bulk of the interaction that we'll have will be to really elicit your support and your inputs and your feedback, your advice, your counsel on how you feel we can best optimize this opportunity that we're going to have as partners. Before I go into that though, I just wanted to latch onto something that Dr. Sadler said, which is this idea of representation. How do we make sure that the diaspora is represented in the affairs of the African Union, for instance? And one of the mechanisms that we have is participation through ECOSOC. So ECOSOC is an organ of the African Union. It is the Economic, Social and Cultural Council. It is basically a parliament for civil society organizations in Africa and the diaspora. And the chief purpose of ECOSOC is to allow the citizenry of Africa, both on the continent and in the diaspora, to feed into the decision making of the African Union. So it's an advisory organ that is designed to bring the perspectives and the interest of civil society into the decision making of the African Union. Dr. Khan here is a member of the General Assembly of ECOSOC. So I thought we could start with maybe a little bit of an overview, Dr. Khan, on what ECOSOC is. Maybe just for 5 minutes to give a little bit of a snapshot of the organ and how it relates specifically to the diaspora, because it's quite important as a mechanism to bring the diaspora directly into the African Union, because of the 150 seats on the General Assembly, 20 of them are dedicated or reserved for the diaspora, and this is one of the things that we hope to be operationalizing once this partnership is ongoing. But maybe Dr. Khan can just give us a little bit of an overview of ECOSOC and his experiences with it.
Thank you, Nana. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy again to be here and to participate in this debate. As he said, I represent the Economic, Social and Cultural Council of the African Union. It's a body like Parliament, like the Court of Justice. It's an independent body managed by CEDAW, secretariat, and it is meant to represent the civil society. You have the heads of states, you have the parliament, you have many bodies, but you have also the civil society. Civil society, it's you guys here. People who are abroad, who are in their countries, but who are not involved in politics, but who are living their lives and who are Africans, and so who are acting as citizens for the future and for the present of Africa. And the heads of states have decided to give voice to these people. And of course, we cannot all go and sit to the African Union, but we organize ourselves into civil society organizations. And those are the members of the ECOSOC. And ECOSOC is, in fact, the most practical expression of the vision of the African Union, because it's the expression of our activities, our implication as politics, and also it is a way to give voice to the grassroots, to the people. And for example, if I take this air transport, there is a free trade zone which has been created. Who will be experience it in it? Who will be it is the people. So the people should enter into a process of appropriation of all the vision of the African Union, and it is not possible without the civil society. So that's why ECOSOC is meant to help to put into action the vision of the African Union through civil society organizations. It's an advisory body with experts, with members of civil society who can contribute through advice to the effective translation of the objectives, principles and policies of the Union into concrete programs. And it can carry out studies, it can also put on the table of the heads of state some prominent projects. It can also, for example, help people to get to know more about the vision of the AU Agenda 2063. For example, this is one of the activities of the ECOSOC. And now, for example, this year we are talking about corruption. If there is no grassroots organization, if there is no people who are talking about it, who will transmit people from Africa who are not involved in politics, but who are living their daily life to give expression to the life of Africa. So that's why it's a very, very important body. It's the most representative body, actually. And it's a living body, it's a continuing body because, for example, governments are changing every time. But people are people and they are continuing to live as people. And they are handling the future of Africa at a very essential sense. So that's why it's very important for you and for us to get a good appropriation of this body and to use it as a tool to help implementing the policies of the Union and the vision of our heads of states. And it relies on the common goal to bring Africa to higher summits and higher standards. Because when I speak, for example, about Pan-Africanism, it's good that everybody has a common understanding of Pan-Africanism. And it is possible through ECOSOC. Because most of us in civil society organizations, we speak local languages. We are aware about realities and the trends and the challenges, and we can give a voice, we can advocate, we can lobby. And one of the roles of the ECOSOC is to lobby for the interests of Africa. And I was talking 2 days ago about ICT issues, for example. You know that ICT is a very powerful tool and also income generator. And if we voice for Africa, we can advocate for ICT and the means coming from ICTs to stay in Africa and to fight against the monopoly and against the big companies who are just coming and making money. And it cannot be successful if all Africans do not enter into the game and take position and advocate. And it is not possible if we don't have a vibrant civil society. And what you are doing here in Canada, for example, is an excellent expression of the ECOSOC, because you are working in your places, in the government, in private sector, but you decided to unite and to go together, to get together and to put up some plans and some programs through this AU6 region, Canada. And if I listen to President Macaulay, I see that it's a tremendous potential, because you can push for very, very big issues, and this cannot possible if you are working, if you are not working alone, if you are not working together. And this is possible because you are civil society, you are united, you are working towards the implementation of Pan-African goals, which is unity, which is solidarity, which is strengthening our ties with our countries of origin, which is advocate for Africa's interests, which is the vision of the African Union, in fact. And so through this process of the civil society and ECOSOC, we can really complement what is done in Addis Ababa and what is done by our governments in all the domains. Because actually, as someone said in the previous meeting, there is no any process in the world in which Africa did not participate. And today, we can say that we are excellent, we have excellent skills in all the domains. There is, now the puzzle is ready. We have very, very prominent blocks that are already here in place, which are the use of our population, which are the natural resources, which are the skills, which are the vision of Pan-Africanism and the AU Agenda 2063. We have to put it together. And if we want to put it together, we have to generalize this vision among the population. And we cannot do it through, without civil society. And now we cannot survive if we are not united, and if we are not strong. And if we want to survive, and if we want to fight for Africa and for these trans, we need such an organization and such a structure so that we can face the big challenges. You know that if you take only the 4 GAFA, Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Apple, if you take these 4, they are as powerful as Denmark. It's 35th economy in the world. I'm not talking about Microsoft, I'm not talking about Intel and other companies. So that means that if you are not strong, if you are not very well organized, you will die. And Africa has a tremendous chance throughout its people, throughout the Pan-Africanism, throughout the vision of the AU Agenda 2063 to overcome these challenges. And it cannot be successful without you, without, that's why I commended this morning the level of organization of AU Africa Unity 6 region. And I had long discussions with Nana and with the president, and I also read a little bit about what you are doing. And I think we need such kind of structures, very well organized, to and also to gain confidence from the governments. You have said it now. You have recognition. You can mobilize funds to push for projects. You cannot do it without organization. You cannot do it without a vision. And that vision is already there. And you will be reminded also that the AU has allowed diaspora to have 20 seats at the AU ECOSOC. So you have your place, you have your role, and you know that, for example, if you take the remittances coming from the diaspora, it's 3 or 4 times the aid, development aid. So in fact, if we are very well organized, we even do not need aid. We can drive our own forces and we can put our own resources and organize ourselves in a way that we don't need aid. And we are very, very well skilled. Yesterday, I visited a company created by an African, and he's doing a great job in Toronto. And I know that Canada is a very good example of how we can use skills and people in a way that they can be productive in the country and for their country of origin. So my message is that we have now all the tools to get success, and Africa is back, as someone said this morning. But we need more to organize it, and we can take advantage of the experience I noticed in Canada. Peut-être juste dire ça très rapidement en français. Donc je suis très content d'être ici en tant que représentant de l'Assemblée générale du Conseil économique et social de l'Union africaine, qui est un organe consultatif comme les autres organes, mais qui a un rôle beaucoup plus concret en mettant en relation les institutions de l'Union africaine et les Africains, les peuples africains. Parce que l'ECOSOC, c'est normalement l'émanation de la société civile africaine. Donc c'est un ensemble d'organisations qui sont représentées, qui représentent la société civile africaine au niveau de l'Union africaine. Donc nous avons un rôle de conseil, nous avons un rôle d'amener des idées, de poser sur la table des questions sensibles, de faire le lobbying pour l'Afrique. Et donc, je disais que le fait d'avoir ici au Canada une organisation extrêmement solide, avec une expérience de longues années, et avec une vision de regroupement, d'organisation, c'est de cela qu'on a besoin. Parce que l'Afrique, c'est 53 États, ou 54 ou 55, mais l'Afrique, c'est aussi la diaspora. C'est tous les Africains qui vivent en dehors de l'Afrique, qui ont une vision, qui ont une envie de donner quelque chose à l'Afrique, qui est mère de l'humanité. Et pour qu'on puisse le donner de façon efficace, nous devons non seulement utiliser le potentiel, mais surtout bien l'organiser. Et donc je disais que toutes les pièces de puzzle, elles sont là actuellement. Il suffit maintenant de les mettre ensemble. Nous avons une organisation panafricaine qui est l'Union africaine, qui est très bien structurée. Nous avons des compétences dans tous les domaines. Nous sommes présents dans tous les pays et nous avons beaucoup d'enjeux, beaucoup de problèmes à résoudre, à savoir le développement, la santé, l'éducation. J'ai parlé tout à l'heure aussi des nouvelles technologies et du rôle des nouvelles technologies. Et le fait que l'Afrique elle ne peut pas avoir de succès si elle n'est pas dans une logique d'organisation et de constitution en grands blocs. Et ces grands blocs-là, ils sont possibles à travers une bonne articulation entre la vision de l'agenda 2063 et la traduction de cette vision en réalité à travers notamment la société civile. Et l'ECOSOC, c'est le regroupement de toutes les organisations de la société civile africaine. Et donc l'ECOSOC prévoit 20 sièges aux organisations de la diaspora. Et la diaspora, donc c'est vous tous qui êtes là, qui avez vos activités, mais qui en même temps vous vous investissez pour votre continent. Et donc pour que tout cela ait un succès, pour que nous soyons forts, pour que nous puissions donner de la voix et pouvoir être entendus, nous avons besoin d'être unis, nous avons besoin de travailler ensemble la main dans la main. Et donc je suis très admiratif du travail qui a été fait jusque-là par la région, 6e région Diaspora Canada, qui fait un travail remarquable et qu'on nous a exposé ici, qui montre qu'on peut arriver à avoir beaucoup de portée et avoir une grande crédibilité, même de la part du gouvernement. On peut être capable de mobiliser des fonds importants pour pouvoir aider sur des questions importantes. Et ça, c'est un exemple à suivre dans tous les autres pays. Et donc, l'ECOSOC est géré, enfin, le fonctionnement de l'ECOSOC est facilité par le CIDO, donc, qui est un représentant ici. Et donc, il y a un travail vraiment remarquable qui est en train d'être fait à partir de la Commission de l'Union africaine pour pouvoir aider les communautés africaines à l'étranger, mais aussi la société civile africaine dans les pays africains, à mieux s'organiser, à mieux prendre en charge la vision de l'agenda 2063. Et donc, c'est une opportunité à saisir. Et donc, vous êtes déjà sur la bonne voie à travers donc, ce que j'ai vu ici. Et donc, je tenais à vous féliciter pour ça. Donc, voilà à peu près les enjeux de l'ECOSOC pour le développement de l'Afrique. Merci.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Khan, for being your own interpreter. Okay, so we can come back to the ECOSOC in the discussion session in case there's more specific questions. But now to do a very quick summary of where we have been in the process that has led to this evening. So as most of you are aware, a lot of the work that we do at the AU is situated within the context of the inaugural African Diaspora Global Summit that happened in 2012. This was the first time that all of the relevant stakeholders, particularly the member states of the African Union, came together to really develop a roadmap to guide the relationship of the AU and the African diaspora. So a lot of the work that we've done since has been within this framework. So one of the key things that came out of that summit was an action plan. And under this action plan, there was specific targets, one of which was to create platforms for closer interaction, solidarity, and collaboration between government and civil society of Africa and its diaspora. And so that is where the idea of these diaspora networks really came to the fore, the idea that we need to work very closely with communities of Africans wherever they are, so that we are able to better coordinate and reinforce each other. And so a lot of the work that has proceeded since that time has been within this framework. And this is precisely the reason why we have taken steps to officialize our relationship with AU6 today. So in terms of where we want to go under this partnership, we really want to make sure that we are able to help reinforce, the partnership that we have between the AU and the diaspora community here in Canada in support of the developmental priorities of the continent. So my colleague has spoken already about the AU Agenda 2063, which is the vision that we have for the Africa that we want 50 years from now. We also want to provide a mechanism through this partnership for the diaspora community here to be represented in the affairs of the African Union. So it's not just a one-way street. We want to provide a two-way relationship where the diaspora is able to participate and contribute and be around the table in the work that we do at the African Union, and ECOSOC is one such mechanism, as you've already heard. We want through this partnership to help support the capacity of our member states. You know, a lot of our member states now have government departments that are responsible for engaging their diaspora. So the political will is very high, but the technical capacity it hasn't really caught up to the political will. So we want to see how we can work through this partnership to support our member states so that they can better reach and engage their diaspora communities and to respond equally to the interests and the needs of their diaspora communities as well. We want to do specific activities that we will jointly develop and jointly manage to support the individual associations that make up AU6. Because being in development, I know that there is a lot of good work being done by individuals, by organizations in the community, and this work is not being recognized, it's not very visible, but I know that it has a lot of impact. And so what we want to do is, by the power of the collective, coming together under one network, we'll be able to, leverage that collective power to support the individual members so that they can be more impactful in the work that they're doing. So I think that is one of the biggest benefits of coming together under this sort of structure. We want to support in terms of the areas of focus and where we feel that this partnership can be best deployed. We want to support action to encourage and facilitate economic participation of the diaspora in Africa, in our member states. We want to develop partnerships between African private sector actors and their counterparts in the diaspora, so that they can each build on their respective comparative advantages for the benefit of the continent. A lot of the things that I see in my work is there is a mismatch, there's a gap of information. So out in the diaspora, there's a lot of people that have the capacity and the resources to support, whether it's in investment or entrepreneurship or in knowledge exchange, in volunteering. There's a lot of will and capacity. What is missing is the information that people need in terms of how best to deploy what they have on the continent. And then when you go to the continent, you have the member states, the governments telling you, we really want to engage the diaspora, if only we could engage the diaspora. So clearly there's a gap in information there. And I think what we want to do is to try to align these two different interests, both in the diaspora and on the continent as well. So in terms of what we hope to be doing, we've done some initial thinking around some of the specific pieces of work that we would undertake together as part of this AU and AU6 partnership. We kind of grouped it around three main areas, and here I think I'll just be quick and then I'll stop so that we can have a discussion about what you think. The first thing for me is we need to support capacity building for the individual associations of the AU6. This is clearly the biggest benefit that they can derive from being part of AU6. I have seen examples from other regions where by coming together, the network is able to approach stakeholders like funders, whether it's federal level funders or multilateral funders, private sector funders. By having a consortium of organizations, you're able to go and present a platform for action that is fundable, that's eligible for funding, which is not something that would be possible if one individual organization went to, say, Global Affairs Canada and said, give me funding to do A, B, and C. But if you come together as a network of organizations, then you're able to show capacity, you're able to show you can deliver. And so we want to use that, that power of being a collective, a consortium, to derive resources to support the work that is being done by the individual member organizations. And I think this is very important. So I would see us doing, for instance, regular capacity building training workshops for the member organizations in any area that is of relevance. So for instance, it can be as simple as organizational development. So how do you organize yourselves as organize an organization to be more impactful? How do you do a business plan? How do you do a visioning exercise? How do you do, for instance, a communication strategy if that's what you need? How do you do a resource mobilization plan if that's what you need? Whatever it is that the organizations require to be more effective in their work, we need to be able to put in place access to training and resources to support them so that they can be more successful. I don't think the role of the network is to replace what is being done by the individual organizations. I think the network should support the individual organizations so that they are more impactful in this work. And so I would really put a lot of emphasis on having a regular series of capacity building support that we can bring to the member state, to the member organizations. This is what you get from working in the AU. So the second major component is around business development and entrepreneurship. So clearly the biggest issue that we have on the continent is employment or the lack of it. And so a lot of the work that we want to do when we reach out and engage the diaspora is how can we engage resources, how can we engage people and organizations, how can we engage the talents that we have in the diaspora to support employment and employability on the continent. This is by far the biggest issue that we have. And we know that we have the opportunity here in Canada to support entrepreneurship, enterprise development, investments, because we have so many leaders in the private sector here. We have so many people who are doing great things in the private sector and also in the professional environment as well. So we want to be able to, as part of the work that we'll be doing through this partnership, to start a series of professional and business engagement with the continent. So if it's about mobilizing a delegation of private sector leaders to go to Ghana or Nigeria or Sierra Leone to work with the private sector there and to look at how they can participate in the economies of those countries. If it could be working with the Association of Ethiopian Doctors in Canada or Nigerian doctors in Canada to go back to the medical school back in Nigeria to support the training and development of new doctors. Again, I am from the development sector, and I know that there are models that are out there that have worked successfully. We just need to be able to be creative in the way that we design some of these initiatives, and with the support of the African Union and the reach that we have in the member states, I think there is an opportunity for us to do very impactful work, supporting business development and professional skill exchanges. So this is another pillar of work that we have thought about for this partnership. The third pillar is really this idea of bringing visibility to the diaspora engagement as an issue, as a policy issue. So it's not something that is necessarily at the forefront of the dialogue and the consciousness of policymakers and the general public. And so we are thinking that through this partnership, we will begin an annual AU and AU6 Diaspora for Development Dialogue series. So every year we will do one high-profile convention, symposium, conference, something along those lines, to really bring diaspora engagement to the fore by bringing all the relevant stakeholders from the government at the federal level, at the provincial level, from the diaspora communities, from the international development world, from the private sector. Everybody comes around for 3 days. We talk about how the diaspora and the continent can work together and how all of the relevant stakeholders can support this work. We will share examples of what has been successful in other areas. We will share best practice. We will focus every year on a different thematic area. So maybe one year we will look at diaspora investment. You know, how do we work to support diaspora investment? Another year we can look at diaspora volunteering. How do we create the conditions for young people who are not necessarily the linkages to the continent are a little bit slim, if I might put it that way. I'm a first generation Ghanaian, so I know what goes on in Ghana, but if I have a child in Canada, how do I make sure that that child continues to maintain the relevant relationships with Ghana? So I think volunteering is one really key mechanism that we can use to build affinity and to really strengthen the roots of our young people with the continent. There are other mechanisms, like in Rwanda they have birthright programs. So come and see how can you get young people who have been born outside Rwanda to come back and just to see Rwanda, see what's going on there, you know, establish relationships, friendships that hopefully they will carry along with them throughout their life. So there's a whole lot of things that we can do in terms of helping to really strengthen the relationships between our diaspora community. So volunteering is something that is quite key to me. So we can look at that as part of this Diaspora for Development Dialogue series. Another year we can look at things like diaspora skill exchanges. So we know that everywhere you look you have, I went to school here, every university that I know of, in Ottawa, in U of T, there's a lot of African faculty. So we have a lot of very high caliber skills out in the diaspora. You have medical associations, you have all kinds of professional associations. A lot of them are doing work on their own. It's an ad hoc level. It's not really structured or integrated into anything strategic at the national level or the continental level. So it would be good to look at how do we mobilize all of these different initiatives that are out there, and then to bring them within the framework of a national strategy, for instance. So when I was working for KISO, we would work with Ethiopia to support the National Health Sector Development Plan, which is the overarching developmental strategy they have in that country in their health sector. So if you're able to situate a program directly within a national level strategy, it's much more sustainable, it's much more durable, and this is something that we want to be able to do. So we really want to get the conversation going on the role and the impact of the diaspora through this series that we hope to launch. So these are the three main major categories of activity that we envisage, and we'll be quite keen, I think, in the discussion that ensues in terms of what you think and how you feel we can strengthen it, if there are other areas that you feel we should look at. But again, it's just a conversation. We want to make sure that we are doing things that make an impact that is of relevance. I think that the one thing that holds back the African Union is this perception of irrelevance to the lives of people. People don't feel it's relevant to me living in Canada. What does the AU have to do with me? Or even on the continent, it's not relevant. So I think we want to demonstrate relevance. So if you're partnering with Canada, going to do things that show to people, okay, this is what I'm getting out of this association with the African Union or this association with AU6. So I think any conversation that we can have towards this end is something that we would take on board very much. Juste pour résumer, pour 2 minutes, je disais tout à l'heure que le travail qu'on fait maintenant, c'est ça a commencé en 2012 quand on a tenu les premiers sommets pour la diaspora en Afrique du Sud. Et là-bas, on a mis l'accent sur les besoins d'établir des réseaux entre l'Union africaine et les communautés diasporiques. Donc, c'est à cause de ce projet qu'on est ici aujourd'hui pour officiellement mettre en œuvre le partenariat entre l'Union africaine et le EU6. Et j'ai parcouru un peu le chemin qu'on va suivre avec ce partenariat. J'ai dit qu'il y a trois domaines principaux où on va travailler, y compris premièrement, je vais juste voir ici, y compris premièrement le renforcement des capacités des associations qui font partie de ce réseau. Donc, je pense que il est important de démontrer à toutes les associations individuelles qu'en appartenant au réseau, ça va apporter des bénéfices spécifiques et concrets. Donc, on va faire beaucoup pour vraiment renforcer la capacité de nos membres pour pouvoir accomplir encore plus de bénéfices pour nos membres. Le deuxième component que j'ai soulevé, c'est pour l'organisation d'une séance annuelle. Donc cette séance, ça va porter sur l'importance de l'engagement de la diaspora. Et chaque année, on va identifier une thématique. Donc ça peut être l'investissement, ça peut être l'échange des compétences et des capacités, ça peut être le volontariat et la coopération, ça peut être l'engagement de la jeunesse dans la diaspora. Mais la science va permettre toutes les parties prenantes ici au Canada, y compris le gouvernement au niveau fédéral et provincial aussi, pour vraiment apporter du soutien et de l'aide pour l'engagement de la diaspora. Et troisièmement, on va travailler beaucoup sur la promotion de l'investissement en Afrique. Donc on sait qu'il y a beaucoup des acteurs dans le secteur privé ici qui cherchent des opportunités pour contribuer ou bien pour participer à la vie économique de l'Afrique. Mais ce qui se passe maintenant, c'est qu'il n'y a pas beaucoup d'opportunités, il manque des informations. Donc on va utiliser le cadre de ce partenariat pour soutenir ce genre de travail aussi. Donc je vais terminer ici pour le moment et je vais inviter des contributions, des questions, des feedbacks. As you can see, I'm not as good an interpreter as Dr. Khan, but I hope that it was not too bad. Thank you.
Very good.
Yes, madam.
J'ai une question.
Oui.
When you were speaking in French, for the benefit of most people here, you indicated that there were some specific questions, good questions that we ought to be able to ask. I'm just wondering, qu'est-ce que c'est une question? Quelle question? What are those specific things that we should be looking at? And the other thing that you said, which I didn't write down, but I thought that you were just trying to, I know it was the idea of